Hello, this is Tullius Tiber, and let's get right to it. Hellish Quart is finally here, in early access, and after playing a good little bit of it, my thoughts are pretty much the same from the demo video, which a link should be popping up right about here if you want to watch that for a more in-depth opinion. However, to summarize for those that don't, I think it's an excellent platform that shows a lot of promise to be a great fighter when it's finished, and even in its somewhat rough early state is very fun. Actually playing it feels like a weird but satisfying mix of something like Soul Calibur and Bushido Blade. Now, not much is different from the demo, aside from the fact that the 2 female characters are now available. There are 6 maps now instead of 3, and there is a survival mode. However, outside of that, not much has changed, aside from the character selection screen, which you should be seeing now. There are 2 unreleased characters whose in-game models are teased, and beyond them are what look like drawings of potential future characters. Of the characters that are currently available, I think Isabella, the lady with the longsword, is easily my favorite. She handles a bit differently than you think a longsword would. She has good range like you'd expect, but she can be pretty deadly at close range. However, at close range, she's very much exposed. Marie, the character with the rapier, at least in my opinion, handles a little weird, and I'm not too terribly fond of playing as her. However, with the rapier, she can very easily get around other characters' guards, making her very difficult to fight. Of the maps, I think one of the new ones, where you're in a large open field, is my favorite. I think this game does better when you have maps that are large and open and have a lot of space for the fighters to circle around and move back and forth from each other. The one map, which you should be starting to see now, where you're in some sort of dungeon or basement, is fine, but it's very enclosed, and the camera doesn't seem to do well with confined spaces. So I think the camera does need a bit of work, and I think the other map with the gallows would be more interesting if the ledges were some sort of environmental hazard where you could fall off the edge. I think there should be a similar thing with the dungeon, where with the push and punch mechanic, knock the opponents into the walls and tables to sort of stun them and leave them open for an attack. I think this game would actually be a bit more interesting if there were levels with environmental hazards, as well as ones like the field and where you're outside the tavern where it's wide and open. Now, the game has already received a pretty significant patch in the update. They've added an AI tweak, which, if you play with the aggressive AI, is pretty noticeable. It no longer mindlessly charges and attacks you, and seems to have a bit more strategy to the way it operates. It's a lot more challenging, which is a good thing in my opinion. The empty arena, the one with the blank background, has had music restored, which is good, as I quite like the music in this game. Definitely sounds like stuff out of The Witcher, but it fits. And the meadow scene has been stripped down of, I'm assuming, some grass to help those who are suffering from FPS issues, although apparently that's a work in progress. There are also a couple of fixes, such as Isabella, the longsword lady's stance changes, which I didn't even really notice. Ragdoll for Jasek when he gets decapitated. Another fix for Isabella to prevent her from freezing, which I didn't notice at all. And pushing down the blade in long guard mode now works for Marie. Barabaz has some new attack animations. He is the bald character. It's to start to differentiate him from Jasek, which would be the red guy in the coat, as in the demo they are identical. There's new music for the gallows arena, and bashing an idle blade makes it lose aim on thrust attacks, which is interesting. And of course, you should be seeing it on screen now, is the practice mode, where you use wooden weapons in an endless fight. Now, apparently it's not a finished mode yet, just the raw basics. I've tried it out for a good little bit, and I do think it's a good idea. However, the characters move much slower in practice mode than they do in the actual fights, which does make sense. However, I think it should be an option that can be toggled, whether they move at normal speed or slowed down for practice. And I think the blur effect around the wooden weapons when you swing is a bit of an odd choice. I'd rather have it off, as, at least for me, it's kind of distracting. Now, there is no real online multiplayer as of now, and as stated before in previous videos, the developer is not sure if he will ever add it due to technical issues with the game using the ragdoll physics as part of the fighting. However, the game does support Steam Remote Play, which in my own experience can be a bit dodgy. I tried playing this with a friend through Remote Play, and I'm not sure if it was just Steam, my internet, or his internet, but it was choppy more often than not, and huge delays and lag spikes. However, the developer does recommend using a program called Parsec for remote play. I have not tried that yet, so I can't really comment on it. But there is also local multiplayer, so if you ever have a friend over, you can do it that way. Now, in the game's main menu, there is a development roadmap. The planned features would be a story mode with full 3D cinematics, which is nice. Online matchmaking for Parsec within the game, so at least a somewhat better supported online multiplayer than what's currently available. At least 12 fighting styles and even more characters, so either we're going to get player character models that are copycats of each other, which plenty of fighting games do, or maybe he's going to implement something like the original Bushido Blade, where you pick a character and then the weapon, which determines their movesets, over 12 different fighting arenas, which is good. Variety, and that's always nice. A full original OST soundtrack for those who don't know, which is obviously already in the process with the music that's already in the game. Alternative skins for characters and weapons, which is always a good thing to have in fighters, in my opinion. The sparring mode with training weapons, which is already at least somewhat implemented in the game. A first-person perspective mode, which was a feature of Bushido Blade, and could be interesting. Maybe we'll see VR support down the road for those that want it. Now, the one I am most interested in, shields and offhand weapons. I'm very curious to see how those will work. And if they're implementing shields and some sort of dual wielding, maybe we'll get more than just characters who are using various kinds of swords and sword styles. And there will be at least 6 advanced AI schemes per character, which is a good thing in my opinion, and something I asked for in my previous video. Now, there are issues with the current build of the game that are listed in this same roadmap. The AI, of course, is number 1. Jasek, Gideon, and Barabaz don't have the limping animations yet for when their leg is wounded. Isabella, Gideon, and Marie don't have tired animations yet after their stamina drains, which is a thing in this game. The grappling is underdeveloped. It's just a simple hold right now, as they put it, but they plan to have a little mini-game for the grappling, which could be interesting depending on how they implement it. Isabella's and Marie's Long Guard, Vom Tag, and Iron Gate stances don't have full movesets. Jasek and Barabaz are not differentiated, which they've started to work on. However, part of that's because those are the 2 benchmark characters with which they designed the game around. Now, at the very bottom are their nearest plans, the things that they'll probably implement first before anything else, which is the complete movesets for the current 5 characters, a proper moves list in the pause menu. As of right now, only Jasek's move list is available when you pause it, no matter the character that's playing. New music tracks, improved AI, a proper arcade mode, a permadeath option in arcade mode, which could make it fun, unlockable rewards for finishing the arcade mode, the Prussian character, which is the one all the way on the left that has his model implemented in the game, a Zabrowski character, a saber fighter, who's all the way on the right, the one in red, a Turkish Gali Komito character, and a Master character, which is another longsword character, so good to see that, and the first story scene and set of fights. So they got quite a bit to do before the game is finished. On the Steam store page, they state that they expect early access to last anywhere between 1 and 2 years, which isn't entirely unreasonable for the amount of work that they're putting in for the finished product. And so, with all that, is Hellish Quart worth the roundabout $15 that they are asking for now? In my opinion, if you enjoy fighting games, especially ones that don't fit the standard mold, or you are a fan of the classic Bushido Blade, my answer is a resounding yes. and based upon the statements by the developers and their responses on the Steam forums, as well as the amount of progress they've made since putting out the demo and the initial reveal of the game, this is clearly a passion project the developer is dedicated to, and it's very well built. Even in its early state, functions very well, and is quite fun. I am Tullius Tiber, and this has been the wonderful Hellish Quart. If you'd like to keep updated on updates to the early access, feel free to subscribe, like the video if you enjoyed it, leave a comment if you have a question on my own experience with it, and maybe I'll see you again. Have a nice day.